There is a quiet moment that happens before someone finally admits what has been living inside their heart. They hesitate for just a second longer than usual. Their expression softens in a way you cannot quite explain. It feels as though they are carrying something important but are not yet ready to let it out. Even when no words are spoken, you can often feel that something has changed. The truth is surprisingly simple. People rarely hide deep feelings because those feelings are weak. They hide them because they have become incredibly valuable. The stronger the emotions become, the greater the fear of losing the person who matters most. That is why they wait. They observe. They stay quiet. They keep everything locked away until the emotions become stronger than the fear holding them back. One of the earliest clues is emotional inconsistency. Some days they seem unusually close to you, not just kind, but emotionally available. They notice everything you say. They listen with genuine attention. They remember little details that others would forget. Their replies arrive quickly. Their presence feels warmer and more comforting. Then, almost without warning, everything shifts. The next day they appear distant. Their messages become shorter. They avoid holding your gaze. The warmth that felt so natural suddenly seems difficult to find. It leaves you wondering what changed. Keep watching, because what happens next explains everything. At first, this behavior can feel confusing. It may even look as though they are sending mixed signals without knowing what they want. But beneath the surface, the real battle is not confusion. It is an emotional struggle. When someone has quietly loved you for a long time, they often find themselves caught between desire and fear. One side of them wants to move closer. Their feelings encourage them to reach out. They want to talk to you. They want to spend more time with you. They want to stop acting as if nothing is there. But another part of them becomes afraid. Their mind begins asking difficult questions. What if everything changes after the truth comes out? What if being honest destroys the connection they already have? What if you simply do not feel the same way? Because of that fear, they move closer and then quickly step back. They begin opening their heart, only to protect it again moments later. It is not because they doubt their feelings. It is because those feelings have become too powerful to handle with ease. The closer they come to admitting what is real, the harder it becomes to behave naturally. You notice it in small moments. They begin talking with excitement, then suddenly fall silent. They seem fully engaged, then unexpectedly become emotionally distant. It almost feels like they are arguing with themselves inside, and in many cases, they truly are. They find themselves standing between two painful fears. One fear tells them they might lose you if they never say anything. The other whispers that they could lose you the moment they finally tell the truth. At that stage, they honestly do not know which fear is greater. Another sign begins appearing in the way they talk about the past. They unexpectedly bring up moments you barely remember. A small conversation, a simple joke, a random afternoon, a tiny detail that seemed completely ordinary to you. Yet they remember every part of it. They remember your words. They remember your smile. Most importantly, they remember exactly how they felt in that moment. At first, it sounds like harmless nostalgia. It feels like they are simply recalling old memories, but something much deeper is happening. They are not just remembering the past. They are quietly returning to the place where their emotions first became real. The same stories keep appearing. The same memories return again and again. The same moments seem to carry a weight that only they can fully understand. That is because those memories became emotionally significant long before you realized it. And once you understand why they keep returning there, everything begins making much more sense. When someone slowly falls in love, there is often one ordinary moment that quietly changes everything inside them. It is not always dramatic or unforgettable on the outside. Sometimes it is surprisingly simple. Maybe you showed kindness when they needed comfort the most. Maybe you listened while everyone else ignored them. Maybe you understood something about them without needing a long explanation. Or maybe you were simply being yourself, and that was enough. Whatever happened, that moment became deeply meaningful. It became connected to the beginning of emotions they never expected to carry. Every time they revisit that memory, they reconnect with the feelings attached to it. They are not only remembering what happened, they are reliving how you made them feel. You can hear it in small comments. They might say they still think about that conversation. They may mention they never forgot something you once told them. For you, it may have been just another ordinary day. For them, it became the quiet beginning of something much greater. As time passes and their feelings continue growing, those memories appear more often in conversation because deep inside they are trying to stay connected to the emotions that have remained with them all this time. And there is another clue that becomes even harder to hide. Eventually, even the way they look at you begins to change. At first, the difference is almost impossible to notice. Then one day, it becomes clear. Their gaze lasts a little longer than before. Their attention feels more focused. Sometimes there is a softness in their eyes that words cannot fully explain. Other times, the intensity catches you by surprise. Then, the instant you notice it, they quickly look away. That pattern matters because it rarely happens without a reason. Eye contact becomes surprisingly difficult when emotions run deep. People can carefully choose their words, they can hide behind polite conversations, they can pretend everything feels completely normal, but their eyes often reveal what their heart is trying to protect. When someone has quietly loved you for a long time, simply looking at you can become emotionally overwhelming. For a brief second, everything they have been hiding rises close to the surface. So they look, then they look away. They hold your gaze, then suddenly break it, almost as though they have already revealed too much without speaking. Sometimes it feels like they are trying to communicate silently, searching for reassurance, searching for hope, searching for even the smallest sign that their feelings might be returned. And before they risk saying anything out loud, they often begin looking for answers in a completely different way. That is when they start testing you emotionally without making it obvious. Their questions slowly become more meaningful. They may ask what kind of person attracts you. They might wonder what you think about relationships, whether timing really matters, or if close friends can unexpectedly fall in love. On the surface, these conversations sound casual. They appear harmless. But beneath every question is a hidden purpose. Someone who has kept their feelings secret for a long time rarely asks these things without a reason. They are quietly measuring your reactions. They are listening carefully to every answer. They want to know if there is even the smallest chance that opening their heart could be safe. They are not searching for perfect certainty because perfect certainty almost never exists. They are simply hoping for enough encouragement to overcome the fear they have carried for so long. Every smile, every thoughtful answer, every small response becomes another piece of the puzzle in their mind. Before they finally reveal what they truly feel, they are trying to understand whether the risk is worth taking. And sometimes, without realizing it, you may already be giving them the answer they have been waiting to hear all along. People who have hidden their feelings for a long time rarely confess without first preparing themselves emotionally. Instead, they quietly collect information. They try to understand your emotional world without making it obvious. They want to know how you think. They want to discover what truly matters to you, what kind of future you imagine, and what qualities you value in someone close to your heart. Most of all, they want to know if there is any space for them in that picture. That is why their questions become more thoughtful. They ask indirectly instead of directly. They pay close attention to your reactions. Every answer you give carries meaning for them. If your words make them feel different from the person you describe, they slowly become quieter. If your answers sound surprisingly similar to who they are, a quiet spark of hope begins to grow. You can notice it in their expression. You can hear it in the warmth of their voice. Yet they still refuse to reveal what they truly feel because they are trying to protect themselves from disappointment. They are searching for the truth without exposing their own heart. As time passes, these conversations happen more often. Their questions stop feeling random and begin carrying emotional weight. Deep down, they are not asking about some imaginary person. They are gently asking whether they could be the one. Stay with this, because the next sign is often the one people overlook the most. Another clue appears in the form of quiet jealousy. It is not dramatic. It is not controlling. It is rarely obvious. Instead, it shows itself through tiny changes that are easy to miss. You casually mention another person, maybe a colleague, maybe a friend, maybe someone who recently showed interest in you. Almost instantly, something shifts. Their face becomes more serious. Their energy softens. Their excitement fades just enough for you to notice. Sometimes they ask another question. Sometimes they suddenly become unusually quiet. Other times their tone changes ever so slightly. Nothing extreme, nothing anyone could easily point out. But the difference is real. When someone has secretly loved you for a long time, they have already created an emotional connection inside their own mind. It is not an official relationship, yet it feels deeply real to them. They have imagined possibilities. They have quietly pictured a future. They have wondered what life would feel like if you eventually chose them. So when another person enters the conversation, even for a moment, that private future suddenly feels uncertain. The uncomfortable part is that they cannot openly react. They have never admitted their feelings. They have never claimed a place in your life. Because of that, they carry the jealousy silently, hiding it behind calm words and casual smiles while pretending nothing has changed. Inside, however, the feeling is much stronger than they allow anyone to see. They experience the painful possibility of losing something they never officially had. That quiet fear can hurt far more than most people realize. They cannot ask the questions they truly want to ask. They cannot admit that hearing about someone else affects them deeply. They cannot tell you that every new name makes them wonder if they have already missed their chance. So those emotions find smaller ways to escape. You may notice a slight change in their mood, a reply that arrives much later than usual, a conversation that suddenly loses its warmth, a subtle difference in the attention they give you. None of it is dramatic enough to confront. Yet somehow you still feel that something has shifted beneath the surface. Behind their calm appearance, another fear has quietly started growing. It is the fear that someone else could reach your heart before they ever gather enough courage to tell you how much you truly mean to them. And as those emotions continue becoming stronger, another meaningful pattern slowly begins to appear. You may not recognize it at first, but once you notice it, it becomes difficult to ignore. Little by little, their presence becomes more constant, not overwhelming, not intrusive, simply more frequent than before. They seem to appear in your daily life a little more often. They respond faster. They begin conversations without needing a special reason. Sometimes they reach out just to ask how your day is going. Sometimes they share a simple thought or a small story that reminded them of you. On the surface, it feels completely natural. It seems like they simply enjoy talking with you, and that may be true. But underneath that comfort is something deeper. This is not accidental attention, it is intentional closeness. Something inside them has started changing. As they move closer to admitting their feelings, time begins to feel more valuable. They realize that opportunities do not wait forever. The connection they treasure today may not always be there tomorrow. Without even realizing it, they begin investing more of themselves, more time, more attention, more emotional energy, more genuine presence. They want to strengthen the bond before they take the biggest emotional risk of all. Watch the little details. They remember things you mentioned only once. They ask about something you talked about several days ago. They follow up on subjects that seemed completely unimportant. They notice details that almost everyone else forgets. Every conversation becomes another chance to remain close. Even when there is no real reason to keep talking, they somehow find one. They continue the conversation with another question, another memory, another story, another smile. The words themselves are only part of what matters. What they truly want is to stay connected for just a little longer. Every extra minute feels valuable because deep inside they are building something stronger. They want the relationship to feel steady, genuine, and meaningful before revealing the truth they have carried for so long. In their heart, they hope that when the confession finally happens, it will not feel sudden or unexpected. They want it to feel like the natural next chapter of a connection that has already been growing quietly between both of you. Then comes one of the clearest moments of all, the moment when they almost say everything. The conversation is flowing normally. Everything feels comfortable. Then, without warning, something changes. They pause. Their words stop in the middle of a sentence. Their expression shifts. For just a second, it feels as though they are standing on the edge of revealing something life-changing. They begin speaking, then suddenly stop. Their thoughts seem to catch up with their emotions. They hesitate. They glance away. They smile softly. They change the subject as though nothing happened. But if you pay close attention, you can feel it. Something important almost escaped, and what happens in the next moment reveals why they have stayed silent for so long. They fear losing the connection that already exists between you. They fear replacing comfort with awkward silence. They fear that once the truth is finally spoken, nothing will ever feel the same again. That is why they stop themselves at the very last second, not because they no longer want to tell you, not because their emotions have faded away. They stop because saying those words means stepping across a line they have been standing behind for a very long time. Once that line is crossed, there is no simple way to return to how things were before. Sometimes you can see this struggle in their body language. They take a deep breath, but never finish the sentence. Their eyes stay on you just a little longer. Their smile seems to hide something they cannot put into words. There are moments when they look completely ready to say more, yet silence wins again. It almost feels as if they are carrying a secret that is becoming harder and harder to hide. That is because they are. In those quiet moments, the truth comes incredibly close to revealing itself. Do not mistake their silence for a lack of feeling. In many cases, the opposite is true. Their emotions have become so powerful that speaking them aloud feels overwhelming. The truth is no longer comfortably hidden inside. It is slowly pushing toward the surface, waiting for the moment when fear is finally no longer stronger than love. Stay with this, because the next part explains why these emotions often seem to appear out of nowhere, even though they have been growing for much longer than anyone realizes. There is another part of this story that many people never stop to consider. Most of the time, these feelings did not begin yesterday. They were not created overnight. They did not suddenly appear after one conversation. For the person carrying them, everything often started much earlier. It began during a moment that probably seemed completely ordinary to you. Maybe it was a short conversation. Maybe it was a simple act of kindness. Maybe it was just a few minutes spent together that you quickly forgot. Yet somehow, that moment stayed with them. Perhaps it was the way you truly listened. Perhaps it was your honesty. Maybe it was your kindness, your quiet confidence, your sense of humor, or simply the comfort of being around you. Whatever it was, something touched them more deeply than they expected. While your life continued as normal, something inside them quietly changed. From that point on, they carried that memory with them. You slowly became part of their inner world, not in a dramatic way, not in an unhealthy way, just quietly, naturally, and consistently as time moved forward. That is why the signs you notice today did not appear without a reason. Every pause, every thoughtful question, every remembered detail has been building little by little. Every interaction added another layer. Every conversation strengthened the emotional connection. Every passing day made the truth more difficult to keep hidden. When the confession finally happens, it rarely feels sudden to the person saying it. To them, it feels like releasing something they have carried inside for a very long time. It feels like setting down an emotional weight they have been protecting for months or even years. Their feelings have been growing quietly beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to finally be expressed. Yet, it is also important to remember something many people forget. Not every sign means someone is secretly in love with you. Some people are naturally thoughtful, some are simply kind. Others genuinely enjoy your company without romantic intentions. Warmth, friendship, comfort, and affection can sometimes look very similar to romantic feelings. Human emotions are complex, and not every meaningful connection is based on love. That is why it is never wise to build a conclusion from one single action or one emotional moment. Real feelings reveal themselves through repeated patterns. They appear consistently. They return again and again over time. Eventually, they become difficult to hide because genuine emotions rarely remain silent forever. They grow stronger, they become harder to ignore, and sooner or later, they begin finding quiet ways to reveal what has been living inside all along. Before we finish, there is one final truth that brings everything together. Instead of trying to analyze every smile, every glance, or every small conversation, pay attention to what feels genuine over time. Notice what stays consistent instead of focusing on one emotional moment. Look for actions that continue showing up. Look for effort that never disappears. Most importantly, notice whether the connection is mutual. In the end, the truth is not found only in the signals another person sends. It is found in whether both people are ready to meet each other with honesty and openness. That is where real connection begins. Not in endless guessing, not in confusion, not in chasing hidden meanings. It begins when two people finally become brave enough to share what has quietly been true for a long time. Sometimes the longest journey is not learning how to love someone. Sometimes it is finding the courage to let them know. And when that moment finally arrives, all the hesitation, the quiet glances, the remembered conversations, the emotional distance, the hidden hope, and the silent fear suddenly make perfect sense. What once looked like small, unrelated moments becomes one complete story. A story that had been unfolding quietly from the very beginning. And perhaps the greatest lesson is this. The strongest feelings are not always the loudest. Very often they are the ones that spend the longest time waiting for the courage to be heard.